Welcome back to Pokey's podcast, Pokey's Mechanical, and we are here with Taylor Ford. Now, Taylor is someone I've known for over 10 years now.
It would be.
First time I met this man, he actually beat me in my first battle.
I don't remember that. You've said that to me a few times, but
I won't forget it. You don't forget your first battle.
You don't forget your first. I'm sorry about that.
No. I've definitely got to get back to you sometime, but you're a long way ahead of me now, so I don't think I'm ever going to have any hope.
I don't know about that.
So Taylor's a local drifter, small town drifter on YouTube.
Yep.
Travelled the world drifting, gone all over to Japan and
Japan a few
New Zealand.
times. Yep.
And yeah, he's got a pretty cool story if you're into drifting and into cool cars. He builds his own cars here in Australia, in Tasmania, and competes in Tassie. Second place for state championship this year.
Yep.
So really highly qualified drifter, basically. Thank you for having me at your shed with your amazing cars and everything. I was blown away when I walked in there. This place is massive for something to have in your backyard. It's really cool. And the location, I won't reveal where you live, obviously, but the location is mint.
Yeah, it's
you've got a pretty well set up here.
Oh, mate, we love where we live. Very fortunate. And to have a shed bigger than my house, pretty much in town, pretty rare.
Yeah, it's cool. So I've got a whole plethora of questions. This might go for a little while, so I hope you've had dinner and we're ready to go for the night. But I guess what was the first thing when it came to drifting that got you involved in it?
It's a pretty cliche story, same as most people, I reckon. Started skateboarding, BMX, mountain biking, all that sort of stuff. Then moved into motorbikes. I always grew up riding motorbikes actually, but when I got my license, was still riding dirt bikes heaps. And then I got a Hot Fours magazine. I still have it actually, and there was this tiny little advert, this tiny little, I suppose, section in the magazine of drifting, and I remember being like, that's cool. Like, I want to try that, and so I sold all my dirt bikes and bought a Skyline and
what model?
32.
Yep.
Not the 32 that you know though, a different one. And that was the rabbit hole. Like, for me, I've always I started off even before cars buying and selling stuff. It was bikes, and then it just kept moving into bigger things, motorbikes, and then it went to cars. And I sort of stopped when I got to cars, and fell in love with the import scene. I thought they were expensive. Now we know that they were basically free. Buying a Silvia for like
the price of what you can buy a car for back then.
Would buy Silvias for like $5,000 and think that I was spending too much money. But so I sold all my dirt bikes, bought a Skyline, and started playing around with that, and then I ended up, it's a crazy story actually. I ended up having the neighbours call the police on me one time, and for some extra curriculum activities.
I'll tell the story. Come on, don't hide it.
I was actually just testing my car up and down the road, and
as we've all done.
And anyway, my mum at the time worked for a real estate agent. This is a really weird story, but it'll land. And she was talking to one of her clients. He must have said, "How's your weekend?" or whatever. And she said, "Oh, yeah, my son was in a bit of trouble with the police, blah, blah, blah." And he was like, "Oh, why is that?" And she said, "Oh, he's starting to get into that drift racing thing." And this guy goes, "Oh, well, I know some guys that are right into that." And my mum heard this, and I don't know how she heard it. She heard him say, "We have our own track." Now, they didn't have their own track. I learned, not condoning this, but I come to find out their own track was PL.
Right.
So if you're from Tassie, you know what PL is.
Yeah. And if you're from the northwest coast, you definitely know what that is.
Yeah, that's right. And so anyway, long story short, it was Brizey, which you know Brizey well, and he was connected with Joash, and and Brendo and all them guys.
Right.
And so that's
And they
how
were
I
already
met.
fully into
and
it
they were
before
fully
you?
into it. And
Right.
Consi at the time was the state champion.
Yep.
And so that's how I met all of them guys. And I started hanging out with them. They had a house, New Street, and I used to go hang out there all the time. And they were so much further ahead of me. Like they were into drifting when they were still on their L's. They had 8.6s when they were
So
like.
how old were you at this stage? Just
I was 18.
18.
Yep.
And how old are you now?
I'm 35.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, you're way younger than me. I thought you were older than that.
I don't know if that's compliment or not.
It
but-
is. No, it is. You're very young. That's good. You've got a lot of youth still.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it doesn't feel like it sometimes. But yeah, so I started hanging around with them guys, and I remember so they had a drift team called HDS Division,
Yep.
and I so desperately wanted to be a part of that, and there was a few requirements to get into that, and eventually I did, and they become some of my best mates, and talking about Japan before every trip I've gone to Japan, it's been with them guys, and we had multiple shed nights in here at everyone's shed, working on cars, building drift cars, and having adventures. Even a couple of weeks ago, me and Skinner jumped in the truck and went and picked up this blue car behind me in Hobart. We left at like 7 p.m.
Yep.
Hobart and back in a night. Just always, this dude's always down
That's just regular drift car
for an
antics,
adventure.
though,
That's
isn't it?
right. Yeah, that's right. So
Go on a mission to just pick up gearbox.
yeah, that's right. So yeah, look, it never really stopped. I got into cars then, and I did a tally once of how many imports I'd had, and I stopped when I got to about, I think it was like 65.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've had almost everything, and
A lot of
multiple of each one actually.
Yep.
But the problem is, mate, I was never able to afford the next one without selling the previous one.
Right.
So that was how I always did it, buying and selling, or buying, parting out, give me enough money to do more. So that's pretty much how I've afforded to drift and keep drifting is that little side hustle of finding good deals, parting them out.
You're always putting up cars or parts.
It's harder now. It's harder to get the good deals now, but that's definitely how I got to having a JZX.
So over all the years of all the cars you've owned, what's your probably most memorable or favourite?
Oh yeah, that's great.
There's probably two different categories there. What is your most favourite and what is your most memorable?
Yeah, that's a great one. I think probably. I'll tell you a few.
You can say that you got more than one favourite.
My original Skyline. Not the original one that I bought first. I got another one after that, which was again an R32.
Want to keep talking?
Yeah, an R32.
Yep.
And I bought it off a guy in Hobart as well. It had an RB25 engine and gearbox swapped into it, and apart from that, it was completely stock. And that was where I sort of really dove headfirst into trying things for myself. I was an apprentice builder. Dad was very mechanical, but he never was into building cars or anything like that. So it was all just, learning from scratch. And so I built, that car had multiple generations. There was one stage when it was on like 15 by 10 wheels with 215 big stretches on them. And then I sort of, it was brown at one stage. I don't know if you remember that. It was like the cool Audi brown.
Yep, I do.
And then that's up there. Like, because that was the first drift car. I did multiple years in that. I would work.
That's the one I think I know you for.
That 100% would have been the one I drove against you in. And so I used to work for a church in Launceston and one down here on the northwest coast. And I used to work in Lonnie on Friday nights, and I'd pack all my stuff in the car, like tyres, everything, drive to Launceston, do my job there, run the youth ministry, and then drive to Hobart the next morning. And like just the old days when we used to drive to the track with all our stuff jammed in.
I don't want to throw a certain person under the bus of driving to the track, but you'll know exactly what I'm talking about with the tyre rack on the back of an S14.
Yes.
Going past me, we're heading down to Baskerville, and you do a loop around out under the highway back to Longford Way, and he's overtaken me and just ripped a handbrake and then come in the entrance from Launceston. So he didn't have to wait for me going around the loop.
Yep. Checks out. Yeah.
When you can drive like he can, you just do it.
They were
not?
the days, weren't they? When you just no one hardly trailered. Most people drove to the track.
Oh, it was amazing how many people did actually.
Yep.
Like compared to now,
you
don't see anyone.
No, or very few. That's for sure.
Laws have got stricter. And
it's very hard.
It's a lot.
It's very hard.
A lot harsher if you get caught driving something like what we used to drive around.
But that's definitely.
I've never had a street drift car though.
Yeah, okay.
But,
that was definitely up there as far as like memorable ones.
Yep.
Then after that, I had the LS Sylvia, which was definitely.
Is that Mitch's now?
Yeah, that's now Mitch's. Yep. I don't know. There's much left of it. Different engine, different gearbox, different front end. I think it's got the same diff. That's about it.
Right.
But yeah, that was awesome. I had a lot of fun with that over the years.
I got some good footage of you at DCA.
Okay. Yeah, sick. That was probably the one that got away, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. So I sold that and I bought a JZX, not this one. And then I sold that one and bought this one and then built this. But I probably should have stayed at the Sylvia. But I'm too far into this now to abandon ship on the JZX. But to answer your question, I think the coolest car I've had, a close second would be the 8.6 that Jay used to own.
Yep.
That was.
So that's Jay Duker. If you haven't seen that podcast, go back.
Yeah.
First ever podcast that I've done.
Yeah.
That man made that car famous.
Yeah. Australia's most wanted. Yeah. I've still got this. I've still got the little when he shipped it over to me.
Grab it.
I think it's up there somewhere, or it was.
You've got it.
It was. Oh, don't tell me it's not there.
So for those that don't know, I'll probably edit it up into the corner. I'll be able to get it off YouTube.
Or a current affair.
It was all over a current affair.
Behaviour defies belief. Tonight, our exclusive vision shows a modified car drifting from one lane to another at dangerously high speeds.
He was a wanted man by Vic Police.
Yeah, but he because it came over on the boat. He made up a number plate because you have to have some sort of identifying thing, and it was like I said something like Australia's most wanted or something like that on it. Like, you're the cheekiest dude I know. So that was cool. But I think the coolest car I've ever owned is the S15 that I had in Japan.
Yep.
That thing was...
I remember watching that on your vlogs. That's cool.
That thing was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So sick. Like, I've never had a car that was that fast.
So did you sell that out of necessity or?
Yeah. So
just free up.
When I started going, so I went to Japan ages ago, one-off trip.
I'd like.
Do you want to come back
that's one
to
of my
that?
questions actually. Is
we can come back to that.
We'll come back.
Okay. Yeah.
But I guess that's all part of the whole story of your drift career and stuff like that. Let's start with your first sort of adventure of Japan, because that intrigues me. I haven't been myself yet.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to go. I just have never been in a financial situation where I can. I'm always focused on business.
Yeah, of course.
And then when we went travelling, it just sort of felt like it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, take us through like what the whole process. Did you buy a car before you left? How did it all work? What happened when you first started going?
Yeah.
And it was completely different from what it's like now. So don't think, I'll just go and do that, because it's not going to be like that anymore.
Yeah. So I suppose I've done 3 spats of travelling to Japan, and each one was very...
What do you mean by spats?
So I did my original trip, and that was a once off.
Right.
And then we'll talk about that. And then I went probably 5 years later, and I did 3 trips then.
Yep.
And then I had another big break, and then I've had this latest run of trips. And it's changed wildly over that time frame. Mostly the financial commitment to it.
Yep.
But also it is a different feel as well. But the first trip, the HGS guys, they all went, and I missed the first trip. I had something for work that I could have got out of it. I chose not to. It was something that was really important to me, and so I missed that trip. So I went on the second trip with all the boys, and so they'd already had cars and had the the wild first trip. So it was kind of good for me though, because they'd worked everything out. Like they knew where to buy the jack and the tools and where you get your fuel and all that stuff. So anyway, I bought a Skyline again, a 32. Again, RB25. Like it was pretty much same as what I had back here, which was I wanted to do that.
Yep.
I bought it for $3,000. Yep. I know. And I thought it was so expensive.
Oh.
I was like, oh man, because I was just married at the time.
Yeah.
So I just moved out of home, living with mum and dad, just bought our own house. Like it was still
Money was tight.
It was a big thing for us.
Yeah, $3,000 when you don't have $3,000.
Exactly, bro. Exactly.
Yeah.
So and I think flight standards as well, they were like, you get a Jetstar sale for $600 return. Now it's like nearly $2,000 return.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so went over there and I was like a kid in a candy store, man. I was screaming like a little girl driving into a B-suit, down past power vehicles, like all these sick cars, and it was a sweet time. I ended up having a big crash towards the end of the trip.
On your first day?
On my first trip. But I'd still got multiple days in of driving and heaps of fun. But I ended up coming around Nishi short it was. And the last corner, I'm not sure if you're familiar, is very tight. And you basically can't see. It's like a blind corner. Right. And I came around the corner sideways and there was a car parked in the middle backwards. Oh. And it bananaed the car. It hit me behind my hip, and it bent the whole car around. It was pretty bad.
Similar to my crash, but mine
yours
was on the
outside. Yours was a good one. You did better. You did better than me, but similar. And so I was like, whatever. The car's done. I've had my fun, because like back then, that's what it was like. You crash a car, you just get another one.
Yeah.
It's obviously not like that now, but that car, funnily enough, I sold it back to Power Vehicles. I thought they were going to part it out. It lived on for many years. They ended up fixing it enough. And when they brought in the rule for no missiles, that was their poster boy. Like that was the one that was a picture that they put up. I'm like, hey, that was me. There wasn't cool missile. Like I didn't run the wall anyway. So that was the first trip. And then I focused on driving in Tassie.
Yep.
And that was when I went right into driving here and really wanted to sort of put my money into that. And then New Zealand and stuff happened in between that. But if we're still on the Japan story, quite a few years later, two of my best mates who are directors and do lots of cool stuff in the film industry.
Yeah, I remember this is when you had Jay's 86 and they were at Baskerville filming it.
Yes, they were. Yeah. Good memory. Well done. Yes, so we filmed a documentary with SBS called The Small Town Drifter.
Right.
And a part of that was obviously it was following me.
Yep.
And my story of which we haven't even talked about, which if you don't know, spoiler alert, I fell in a fire when I was 15.
Yep.
And sort of followed me through the journey of that and chasing my dreams, being from a small town and going over to Japan to compete with some of the best. And so we bought a JZX and we filmed the documentary on one trip. And then I kept the car and I did 2 more trips with that car and then sold it. Again, I sold it for I think I sold it for $10,000.
Yeah.
Which is like, might have even been less than that actually.
Wow.
Which now they're like 25, 30.
Yep.
So that was awesome. That was quite a few years later.
So how did the documentary go? Was that published on SBS on TV?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
It went on.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's
I seen them filming and I found out that it was about a documentary. I didn't find out any more than that. We were travelling Australia, so I couldn't see TV.
Right. So it was on SBS On Demand. I don't know if it still is.
Right.
But it was on there for a long time. When I was in Japan,
Do you have a copy of it?
Yeah, I would somewhere. Yeah,
right.
I'd have a Vimeo link or something like that. Yeah, if it's not still.
See if we can see it.
Still alive. But that was awesome. It was very different than the previous trip and the ones after it, because obviously I've got, some dudes following me around with a camera and feel like a bit of an idiot, but it was still...
Yeah, it is. That would be a very confronting feeling out in public with a crew following you.
Yeah, and especially when I wasn't and still aren't, but like I didn't set the world on fire. Like I didn't dominate.
No,
I didn't win. I qualified and it was on the famous Minami track, which is now basically closed. So that was cool that I got to drive that as well. But that was an awesome experience. And then again had a big break in between then. And I had a S14 that I was building here, and it was going to be like my dream street car. And then all the boys decided, let's go back to Japan. And I'm like, crap, I can't miss out. And so I sold the S14. I actually bought it during COVID. So I sold it when the prices were good.
Right, yep.
And I took a real risk. So you asked the question, do you buy the car before you go? Both them first two ones, the Skyline and the JZX.
I was about to get that out.
I bought them off direct from Power Vehicles.
Right, so
Power Vehicles,
online before you went?
Online. Power Vehicles are a super reputable organisation. Pretty much until the last couple of years, everyone went through Power Vehicles.
Yep.
Andy, great dude, used to drive in FD, like one of the sickest drivers ever, runs a exporting company there. The drifting part of what he does is small, but so bought them through them. So basically you give them a deposit and you go on their mailing list, and they send you out their stock and all the information, and then you say, yeah, I want that one, or you just wait until one comes along. And that's how they work. And then obviously your deposit comes off the sale price. But on the third time I went, I came across this S15 that was a ex-D1 street legal car. It was built by an American that lived in Japan who was in the Navy. And he had a YouTube channel, and so I could do a little bit of research and see the car and see all the work. And it was built head, TD06, 350Z gearbox, just Haltech in Japan, which is wild. Yeah. Heaps of good stuff. And I'm like, I want that. So I ended up privately purchasing that off him. So I'm sending $20,000+ to a random American, hoping that he's going to drop my car off to the track. And he could have just drove it.
That's a gamble.
Yeah.
That's a big gamble.
Yeah. And so because it wasn't a Power Vehicle car, I needed to go with someone else. So I went with Side X. Yep. And that was Fausto and Lewis. And so they took delivery of the car. They checked it over. Sweet. They did a bit of work to it for me. It actually, I wouldn't say it was a nugget, but I had to spend a bucket of money on it it wasn't quite as good as old mate had made it out.
Right.
So I spent a couple $grand on it just to get it up spec and got it. I wanted to get it tuned again because it was a lot of money to risk if it wasn't tuned right. Anyway, went over and I think I did 3 trips with that car, and it was nuts. I had basically no trouble with it as well.
What engine package was in it?
SR.
Yep.
So TD06, sick it sounded awesome. B-knuckle, stance coilovers, it was full Jap spec, full Naoki spec. And, dude, we towed it in so much, 265, dropped them down to I think nearly single digits. I just could not get enough grip into that car. It was an animal. Up north course, you click fourth and it will just roll on.
Yeah, right.
It was. I chased a FD car in it, and he was on semis and I was on bald 265s, just radial, and he definitely gapped me, but he did not run away from me. I was like, this thing is, it's nuts. But I basically did 3 trips off my savings and the money from the S14, and then I ran out of money. So I'm like, okay, I'm sort of at a crossroads here. Do I sell up and just, have my fun, or do I sell and buy something cheaper? So I sold it. I got most of my money back. And then I bought Fausto, which, if you know who he is, he drives in FD. Awesome driver, who was part owner of the Sidex, who was servicing the car and looking after it. I ended up buying his personal practice car, which was 350Z.
So for those that don't know as well, Sidex is a company you can go and hire a drift car and drive their cars at the track.
So they have two companies.
Instructors that we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to go to Japan and get into it without actually buying a car, you can
it's
go
a
through
good way to do
Sidex
it.
and hire one.
Yep. So there's Sidex, who they maintained the cars, and then there's a Sideway Experience.
Right.
Who does, you can hire the car from, or do school or whatnot. So I bought the Z, and I did a trip in that. I actually missed one trip that I fully booked, was about to fly out. So I was flying out, say, on the Saturday. Friday night, my wife went into labour like 6 weeks early, so I missed a trip because my daughter was born the day I was supposed to fly to Japan. Right. So I missed that trip. That was actually with the S15. And I'd bought this car, I'd done a trip in the Z, had a sick time in the Z. It was a massive change from what I'd come out of. Yep. But again, I was out of money again. I'm like, all right, this might be it. And then I got offered the job of doing the coaching for the Sideways Experience. So then that opened up more doors. So then what I did for a few trips was I would fly over with them. I would teach their 7-day school, and I was already there, and my expenses were paid to get there. So once you're there, like it's pretty affordable to just be there.
Your
food,
fuel.
Basically, food and some tyres and fuel.
Yeah.
And so that's how I was able to keep going for a few more trips.
Cool.
After that.
Yep.
And then the last trip, which was only a couple of months ago, I sold the car. So I now don't have a car in Japan. And so there's not...
So how much did you, if you don't mind me asking, how much it was the 350Z?
Yeah, pretty much all in. Like once I did seats and all the bits that I needed to, because Fausto pulled the seats out and stuff.
What did that cost someone to
15 grand.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah. And that was a good deal.
Yep. That's not too... And that's spare wheels and everything?
No, that's just the car. I bought spare wheels. I bought a seat. So I paid 15, and then I probably spent another 1,000, so 16,000 with some. I kept all my tools from the S15 though.
Yep.
So that's a big outlay on the first trip as well. You want to get a good jack.
Yeah.
You take a fair few tools, but honestly, what we've learned is it's just easier just to buy all stuff
just
over there.
Cashed up, ready to buy them when you get there.
Yep. Joash, he's got more. He has the sickest tool set up in Japan. He has better tools in Japan than what he has here. It's got like full Milwaukee set up, like bought a proper like Japan charger, the lot. So you want to be mates with him.
Yeah, cool. I'll have to. I'll have to sit down and have a chat with him as well.
Yeah.
I want to actually go over the job of training people. That would be a cool experience.
It was,
but there's also got to be some funny stories of people that you obviously would get people that would struggle to start with, and then you finally get it.
Yep.
Is there some like really cool sort of stories or interesting?
Yeah,
scenarios?
I had a pretty good run with all the students. Really, there was definitely a big array of skills. Some are coming in that have So one guy had never driven a manual car before.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a big step.
That's a big step.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's some there's the one girl from the UK. She was a full-on stunt woman in movies that you and I have seen.
Right.
And so she played it down, and then she drove. And I'm like, what am I here for? You're doing it.
I'll go and have lunch.
Yeah.
Driving.
Yeah, so she was great. And then there was like the middle. There was one guy that had never drifted a real car, but had multiple hours on a sim.
Yep.
straight away. First lap, bang.
Yeah, just got it.
Just got it.
Cool.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep. So, yeah, definitely had a big array of drivers. The hardest thing was a lot of people have in their mind what they want to do and how they think or what they think they need to do that. And so you're telling them to do something different and they're like, no, but I want to do this. And so it's really hard to be like, I know you want to do the big third gear snap, but let's start with the first gear handbrake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, start with the basics.
Let's start with the basics.
Yeah,
but
I think we all had that ambition when you first get in. You're thinking,
and you watch the videos.
The best driver in the world. Nah.
But I had met some really great people. On the last trip that I did, there was a couple and they're from New Zealand and the guy was there supporting his partner and she was learning to drive. She drives in New Zealand, but he is a pro driver from D1NZ and I really hit it off with him. And he's actually moving to Japan to do full FD series in Japan and stuff. And he's an awesome fabricator and he's helped me out with some parts for this car actually. So I met some awesome people, like really, really cool people and loved working with the team at Sidex and Steph and Lewis and Fausto and did a little bit with Jake as well. It was a sweet experience, and they've asked me to come back again. And the problem is with Dare to Drift and having a young family, but more importantly, also not having a car there. There's not really a big attraction for me to go back just to do the coaching. Yep. Although it's fun, like I would still do in my lunch break, I'd do 30 laps. Yep. Whereas, just sitting passenger in a car all day, yes, you're in Japan, but you're still just sitting in a passenger seat of a car.
Wouldn't really matter where you were.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
totally understand.
Unless I get another car, I probably won't do more coaching.
Right.
We'll see.
So, sorry, I've just had 3 questions come to my mind. I'm trying to pick which one to ask. The Dare to Drift, that brand, tell us about that. I don't know anything about it. What is it?
Yeah.
We'll show you his trailer after this.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Well done on that. That's sick.
Yeah.
But tell us, what is Dare to Drift?
So Dare to Drift is a non-for-profit that I started about 12 months ago. It's been a dream of mine for about nearly 16, 17 years. And so it's a combination of a few things. If I was to boil it right down, it's a ministry where we use the tool of a drift car to help break down stereotypes of a few different things. The major one would be what it is to be a Christian in Christian schools. But I suppose the underlining foundation of Dare to Drift it lines up with the mentality of the small town drifter. Is every young person, there's something unique about them. They're created for a purpose. They are not an accident. And I want to help young people realise they can do great things and they can overcome adversities. And the lot that they're given in life doesn't have to define who they are or what they do. And so it really is I suppose if you put, there's a big element of faith to it, and it's been something that's, hugely changed my life. It wasn't a part of my life as a teenager. And on the backside of falling into the fire, it was a big part of the healing process for me and coming out of that alive, essentially. But what I love about Dare to Drift is it is all about helping young people see their future as bright and believe in themselves and make good decisions, not give in to the peer pressures of the world, and change some stereotypes, I think, of what you can and can't do. And so we'll be travelling around the country for about 4 months, me and my wife and 4 kids in our trailer, and we'll be going to multiple high schools and primary schools all up the East Coast. We're hoping to present to about 20,000+ students over that time, and we'll see what happens from there. And we'll actually I'll do as much driving as I can on the way, but I suppose the big news is this car won't be coming. This car here will be coming. So
Right.
this IS200 will be the mock-up version, essentially, of that. So it'll look the same,
Yep.
same livery. It'll still be fully competitive drift car, but it'll be more of a street version.
Yep.
Whereas, full interior, registered,
Yep.
legal. Whereas this thing
No.
ain't that.
Ain't that.
Ain't that.
Ain't that at all.
Ain't that.
So I've just realised while you're saying that, there's information that I know that we haven't revealed to the camera. Your job. What do you do for a living?
Yeah, it's a weird one.
It sort of is, I guess.
It's not. It's probably not what you would assume when you see these cars.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah.
So I guess, let's go over that, and also the fire incident and how it sort of all evolved and became your life.
Yeah,
basically.
big part of my life for sure.
It is.
Yeah, so I work full time for a church here in Penguin, the Rock Community Church. I started as the youth pastor there 15 years ago. So I ran all our youth ministries, and that was awesome. I just had such a good time. We built a pretty big youth ministry and seen just some really cool stuff happen in our community and beyond. But previously to that, I suppose what got me to there is like you said, and like I'd already mentioned, when I was 15, I wanted to be cool like everyone else. I always felt like I wasn't good enough though, which is a very, standard story. So many young people have huge insecurities of not being cool enough.
I still feel that a lot.
That's right.
I think
right.
It's a human thing.
That's right. And so for me, it was huge in high school, and so I desperately wanted to fit in. And I got to the stage of high school when partying became, the thing, and I was like, that's it. This is my ticket. This is how I'm going to become cool. So next opportunity, I'm getting drunk, and so I did. I took it by the horns and ended up, long story short, had so much to drink that I passed out, fell off a camp chair just like this, straight into a fire, fully blacked out, laying in a campfire, and I should have died. The doctor said that if I was in the fire for one more second, I would have been dead. And so that started a huge part of my life. I went, again, if I told you the full story, we'd take up all our time, but I ended up being emergency flown to Hobart. We've got one of the best burn clinics
where
in
did this
Australia.
happen?
On the northwest coast.
It was
in Latrobe.
It was in Latrobe. Right?
Yep. At a friend's house, and ended up getting flown to Hobart. Spent 3 months in hospital in my own room because I didn't want to get infected. 3 months in hospital.
That was a full on.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Heaps of plastic surgery, skin grafts on my hand and my face.
Yep.
Had to get my mouth cut open, my nose cut open. Skin graft under my eye, heaps of stuff. The list is huge.
Yep.
And so, I was this insecure kid, right? And now I got to come home after 3 months. I was still in recovery for a little bit before I went back to school. But let's say, 6 months I'm back at school. You can imagine now what my insecurities are like.
Oh, through the roof.
I'm wearing a glove.
I couldn't imagine what that would be like.
I'm wearing a glove. I'm wearing a mask.
Yeah.
I'm the dude that I'm the dude that got drunk and fell into the fire.
Yeah.
And that was wild. And so we're in year 10 now, and so I just want to get out of there. As soon as I get out of school, I was out. So I ended up leaving straight away as year 10 finished. I got a job as an apprentice builder, and I ended up working for this a big family that had lots of projects on. Someone in the family always had a project, and they employed full-time builders. And so I didn't work with my boss, but I worked for my boss, if that makes sense. But I had a boss that was a tradesman. Anyway, literally just over the road here is a church, and we ended up doing the renovations for this church. And one day my boss came in and he handed me an invitation and he said, "Would you like to come to church?" And I was like, shit. No, I don't want to go to your dumb church, because I'd grown up in faith-based schools, and so I thought I knew what faith was. And I was like, no, I freaking don't want to go to your church. And I was like, shit, he's my boss. Like I can't say no.
Yeah.
And then I remembered he had a hot daughter, and I'm like, all right, maybe there could be a silver lining here. And I ended up going to their church.
That's funny.
It was the very first service they ever had. So they just started this church, like it was a fresh church plant.
So it's just been,
Yep, just been launched, and I never left. I didn't like run to the front and get on my hands and knees and cry out to God, but there was something special about the place and the people and the community, and so I kept on coming back, and again, long story short, after a few years, I ended up quitting I finished my apprenticeship, and I quit pretty well the day I became a tradesman, and I went into full-time ministry from then on, and that's when I started working for that church in Launceston and the church here. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I asked my girlfriend, which was my boss's daughter, to marry me. So I ended up marrying that girl that I was hoping to elude. And now 4
church
kids.
to get the girl and got the girl and got married.
Yeah, that's right. Got the job, got the girl.
Got stuck in church.
Yeah, and started working for the church, and it's been an awesome journey. Like it's quite literally saved my life, gave me a purpose, gave me a passion. And always had a real desire to see young people just succeed in life.
Yep.
And through sharing my story, I was blessed to get to do all sorts of things. And I think God really used the shitty time of my life of falling in a fire for good. And I really believe that the Bible says that He can turn all things around, and He did for me. Yep. It sucks. It was horrible. I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy, but it's turned into some good stuff. And so, yes, I work for a church. I'm now the associate pastor, which doesn't really mean all that much. It just means the way I describe it is a principal is like a senior pastor is like the principal of a school, and an associate pastor is like the vice principal. So I'm the associate pastor.
That's a good way to put it. Cool.
Yep.
Sweet. Yep. So do you think your drifting actually makes you more relatable to the younger kids as well?
Oh, 100%.
And because
100%.
I know when, I went to a couple of church things with mates when I was young, but it just wasn't something that interested me, and the people that were operating the church, I guess, came across as boring people.
Yeah.
Where,
dude, you're literally preaching the exact message that we're trying to break.
And this dude's far from boring.
I hope so. I'm trying.
And looking back, they probably weren't boring people. They probably had a lot going on in their lives.
But to you, they were.
As a young kid,
exactly.
They had nothing going on that I was interested
100%.
in.
100%. And that's the premise of I suppose this ministry is that when we pull up, with this car or that car or the truck or the trailer, or when they're told there's a pastor coming to speak to them, they'll be like, oh yeah, here we go. We've been here before. But then when this stuff turns up, when this turns up and you hear this, you hear my story that you got the tiny version, there's some radical parts of it, and we use drifting as a real analogy to what faith should be like. I talk about how if your faith, I say drifting's fast, it's fun, it's exciting, it's scary, it's costly. We know that.
Adrenaline pumping.
It takes practice, all them things. I list all these things off and I say, if your faith isn't like that, I'd say that you're doing it wrong. And your faith should be scary sometimes. It should be fun, it should be fast. It should cost you something, actually. It should take practice. And so we use the elements of drifting to, I suppose, normalise faith, but also make it exciting, because it is exciting. My faith has taken me across the world and helped with drifting as well. New Zealand's a perfect example. When I went to New Zealand for the first time, it was with my wife. We were only just married.
More than once, have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So the first trip, it was just to holiday.
Right.
And I so distinctly remember sitting on the plane, flying there, and I this random throwaway prayer. I was like, God, you know what? It'd be really good if I could meet a Christian that loved drifting and had multiple cars and invited me back to compete in D1NZ, because we were going to watch a round of D1NZ. And I shit you not, that exact thing happened. We met a
Wow.
guy at the track. Turns out he was a Christian. He lived in Rotorua, which is where we were going next.
Are we allowed to name who he is?
Yeah, Jock Bennett, absolute legend.
Yep.
OG in D1NZ, him and his brother.
Righto.
Ended up spending some time at his house with his wife. He goes, hey, I want to show you something. Takes me out to his shed, big shed, roller doors, pulls them back, 3 drift cars. He goes, I want you to come back and drive one in D1NZ. No,
Wow.
So I ended up flying back. I ended up doing 2 rounds of pro sport in D1NZ in his SR powered 8.6.
Yeah, nice.
So,
what tracks was it? that you
I
drove?
did Hampton Downs and it's at Palmy, North or something Palmy. I can't remember the track. I always forget it. I think it was the one that they just did. That they just had.
Oh, where Brody just
Palmerston
won.
North. Palmerston North is where it is. I forget what the track's called. So both of them were awesome.
Yeah.
Heaps of fun.
So I remember, I think it was at Dave's shed, Disco Shed. You said to me, because of what my car used to be like, just 4th gear on the sweeper, massive just smoke show, fast entries. Like you said, you'd love this track because of the high speed and big sweeper.
That's right. It was literally 4th gear, this big long sweeper. It was really fun. But I was doing it in I can't remember how much, like a T28.
Right,
SR28.6.
Yeah, 200 kilowatt, 220.
Yeah, less. And
probably. Oh, right. Not on E85.
No.
Oh, right. Yeah,
really
so
having to work for it.
Kilowatt,
really having to work for it. But awesome experience. Awesome experience. But so I say all that to say, faith played a part in that, and it's just opened up some awesome doors. I've been able to travel the world because of my job and see some amazing things and meet some awesome people. We've spent Danielle and me we only had 1 child at the time. Hunter was under 1. We spent a couple months in Africa doing stuff for church, and it's changed my life. The people that I've met, the opportunities that I've had, without turning it into a platform to preach. I don't know how people survive the crazy parts of life without faith.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never had someone put it that way. That's cool. I am a person that I do believe in God, but I have never really been one to go to church. But it's cool to hear your story of how that's affected. Let's get into back into the Tassie drifting.
Yep.
And you've really put in the last couple of years and made a mark for yourself. You've gone a long way into the research and development of your own car and done some pretty wild fabricating of panels and things like that.
Yeah.
So this is probably one of the lightest in Australia, would you say?
For a JZX?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Oh,
or possibly
100%.
the world.
Oh, no, Daigo would have me. He's got his down to 1,000 kg. I don't know how the frick he's done
for
that.
your level of driver.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. 100% would be the lowest.
Go through what you've done physically on the car.
Well, there's no metal in this car apart from the roof. So,
the chassis to the roof.
Yeah, the chassis and the roof, obviously, but all the doors, the boot, bonnet, everything is fiberglass. If I couldn't buy it, I made it. So obviously, Origin, who are a part of the support on this build, supply the bonnet, the guards.
Christian Pickering, thank you.
Yeah, legend. And the rear wide body, but you can't buy so really I didn't build it for lightweight. Well, I did, but my major motivator was JZXs are stupid expensive, and you can't just go buy a door. If you get ran into, which let's be honest, it's gonna happen.
Happened.
Yep.
It has happened.
Has happened. If you look on the other side, there's a big hole in the door. You just can't go buy another door. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to make some molds for this. I have no idea how to fiberglass. I'm full rookie, but just went full deep end, taught myself how to make molds. So I made molds for both the front and the rear doors and the boot. And so basically I can wreck every panel on this car and put it back to
exactly how it is.
Brand new again. Yep.
Yeah, sweet.
So we managed to cut out a bunch of weight in it. I put wise fab in the front. Wisefab had released like a sneak peek. They were going to do an IS 200 front end, which I knew was very similar to JZX. So I bit the bullet and bought the kit and adapted it to make it work. I was the first person to put Wisefab in a JZX, and they chatted to me through the process, and I told them what I did, and then sure enough, a few weeks later, it's advertised as a JZX kit on Wisefab. Right. So that's pretty cool.
Yep. First in the world.
Yep.
Well
and I did a TR6060 conversion, which is the strongest, basically factory gearbox you can put in it.
Yep.
With an S1 sequential, and that worked well for quite a while. It worked awesome.
How do you find the S1 sequential?
Great.
Yep.
Yeah, I really liked it, but I still wanted to shift faster. So I've actually sold the complete drivetrain out of it, and I've got over the Mac corner a 4-speed dog box to go in it.
Right.
So that's the only change for...
What'd you go, G-Force or...?
It's actually a really old a T101. So it's the same as a G-Force 101, but it's just like the earlier model.
Yeah, cool.
So it should do the trick though. And stock 1J internally, all the bolt-ons, 400, nearly 400 kilowatts, does the job. But the hardest thing about this, and like while I was saying the Sylvia was the one that got away, trying to get a JZX to work on a 235 is very hard.
Right.
It's such a small tyre. So, I run no rear sway bar. I run 6 kg rear springs. The lowest I can get the tyres to go without coming off the bead, which happens all the time.
Yeah.
Just to make it try to be as fast as a Silver. It's really hard.
Yep.
Especially with if the radial tyre is obviously not so much the size.
What we've got to stick to.
Yeah. But that's also part of the fun of it, is trying to make it work. So hence why making it light was a real bonus.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest sort of mod thing that improved it for your, or is it an overall package thing?
Yeah,
because it is highly competitive. This is the car that came second in the state.
Yeah, it's definitely
and
works.
We don't have slouchy drivers here. Like
I'm so impressed with the
quality down here in Tasmania is huge at the moment.
I agree, and I think I said it at our reward ceremony night. Like we're so fortunate to have such a good series. We punch well above our weight as far as quality drivers. There's so many guys that could win on any given weekend, and can put it to most of the mainland guys that come don't get it easy.
No, well, there's not many that have made it right through. It's only the guy from New Zealand that's got first.
Yeah, I know. Jake Jones did.
Yeah,
he did well as well, but he also had his crazy car here. 1,000
horsepower BMW RB26.
Yeah, that thing's nuts.
Yeah.
So sick. I seen that driving in Japan.
If you don't know who Jake Jones is, Drift Squid on YouTube, look him up. I'll tag his channel down below as well because he's an absolute legend.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of time for that guy.
Cool guy. Best mod. Honestly, I think this will sound bad. I'm a big fan of hydro, not because I think you should use the handbrake all the time, but having a handbrake that works is awesome. That's definitely one, especially with a big car like this.
Have you got dual calipers on the rear?
Yeah, so I developed my own brackets to run a R32 caliper.
Yep.
Twin caliper setup, and obviously front end. Like you want a good steering setup. The Wisefab's sick. I'd love to try FDF.
Oh yeah.
They have a kit for a JZX. I'd love to try that.
They are going leaps and bounds. That company.
Yeah. They're on Wisefab level, I'd say.
Yeah, FDF are a Canadian company.
Yeah, Canadian.
Canadian company.
Another Christian.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. They're doing a lot with LZ and stuff like that.
Heaps of people. So that'd be sick. But I think for the new car, I'll tone it down a bit more in the front end side of things, just do cunt shut knuckle and.
Yep. I want to get on to talking about your YouTube channel, but first, Nissan or Toyota? Because I don't think you haven't ever stuck to one or the other. You've gone Nissan, Toyota.
I'm a cheater.
Which you've got to pick one. You can't be both.
I know.
Which is your favourite?
Look, well, put it this way.
Or is it just
ultimate budget?
At the moment?
Ultimate budget, I'd be building a Nissan.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Oh, I guess Toyota's got a bit more of a tax on it, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon I'd be building a Sylvia, or I genuinely think the Z chassis is as good as a Sylvia.
Right.
Yeah. And the 370, which is my practice car, as wanky as that sounds, is the same as the new Z. The chassis are exactly the same. So
Oh, the new 400?
yeah.
Right.
Exactly the same. So I would, if I had big budget, I'd build one of them, I reckon.
Yeah.
But I love Toyotas. I love four-door Toyotas. I just think they're gangster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, if I had the money to be able to drift my Supra, I would, but yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to justify, isn't it?
Oh. Well, now with what it's insured for 80 grand now.
Crazy.
If you hit a wall, it's like, that's game over for that chassis. They don't crumple like a Sylvia.
No.
They just fold.
And if there's
twist
no way
bad.
I would be drifting this if I paid current JZX prices for it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like I bought this well before the increase of JZXs, but as you know, I would hate to think how much money I've put into this car, but we don't do it to make money, do we, mate?
No, we do it to make memories.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
And you can't buy that.
No.
Not directly.
No.
It still costs to make them though.
So let's get on to your YouTube channel. So you've been doing that for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Where did the name The Small Town Drifter come from?
Yeah, that's a cool story.
Obviously, you live in Penguin.
I live in a
which
town
has
of
a population of how many?
just like 4,500 about.
Like, it's tiny.
It's small.
Like, it's 3 minutes and you've driven from one end to the other.
Oh yeah, it's a good 3 minutes though.
Yeah, it's a beautiful little town.
So before I did anything of like the small town sort of stuff, I was just posting everything on Facebook was the big thing at the time.
Yeah.
And one of my friends' partners actually said to me, like, Taylor, I'm sick of seeing your car stuff. Like, can you make another page for your car stuff? And I was like,
I lost friends because of the stuff I posted on Facebook about cars.
You know.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, whatever. And I thought, oh, all right. And so I started a Facebook page called The Small Town Drifter. And I was like, man, if I could get 100 people, like that'd be pretty cool. And I think
what came up with the name first?
I just came to my head. I'm like,
right.
What can I call myself? Well, I'm from a small town. What about the small? Like it was just like that.
It's just that
Small town drifter.
Yep.
And I liked it because it
right.
wasn't like not that I have anything against that, but it wasn't like Taylor Forward Drifter or something. Because it could almost be like an alias.
Yeah.
Like there's like we're from Tassie. Like we're all small town drifters, really.
Yeah.
Like it could be anyone. And so I started this Facebook page and I couldn't believe it. In the first day, it was like at 300 people and it just kept going and going and going. It took, I think it was about a month and it was up to 10,000 likes or followers on Facebook. And I was like, crap.
Yeah, right.
This is nuts. And so I started doing blogs. Believe it or not, I had a little website doing blogs, and I have dyslexia, so they would have been hilarious because I can't spell for shit. But it was like before YouTube was real, like it was the thing, but not what it is today. And I started uploading real random, like sort of unedited, just in-car footage, and I am kicking myself that I didn't stick at it because then I stopped for ages.
Yeah.
And I just did the Facebook stuff, just uploading photos and, whatever else. And then...
I'm guilty of not being consistent with YouTube as well.
I know. We're silly, but whatever. We're here now. And then I picked it up. Then I picked it up again sort of in the middle from inception to now, and I did it for a little bit, and then I stopped again. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I was like, I'm gonna properly try. And then from about then, I've pretty consistently done an upload a week.
Yep.
And that's my goal, to do an upload a week. And so it's been a grind, like I put a lot of hours into filming and editing, and not seeing huge amounts of traction, but I actually just enjoy it anyway. And I think it's something cool that maybe one day my kids might want to go back and see the adventures that I got up to, and even so now they're a part of the channel, and you see them running around and driving their little drift carts around, and especially when we start travelling with Dare to Drift, they'll be a big part of it as well. So I really enjoy filming it and doing it, and it's nice. It's a nice way to connect with people, and I'm not doing it to try to become famous. It is still the philosophy, I suppose, of Dare to Drift, is that I'm just trying to show people that, but just because you're from a small town doesn't mean you can't do cool stuff or chase your dreams. And and it might look different. I'm not a professional drifter. I'm not getting paid to drift, but I've managed to make it a part of my career, is linked to drifting at least. And so you can get creative with what you do as a career and your passions and stuff. So YouTube for me is just a bit of an outlet to share with people what I do, and some people probably think I'm a bit of a wanker. Other people seem to like it. I'll keep doing it if people keep watching them.
Yep. Yeah, I think the idea of the fact that you've got kids and there's a potential that you can have grandkids as well, that's something that'd be cool to look back on, because by the time that evolves and happens, these don't exist anymore.
They'll be the Tiranas of the world.
Well, yeah, they're going to be historical cars.
That's right.
And you've wrecked how many?
Yeah.
What, Grandpa? That'll be funny stories.
You had to put what in it to make it go? It was called petrol.
It's called E85. It was made from corn.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
no,
cool.
hopefully that still exists when I have great grandkids.
Yeah. I reckon it will.
I'm an anti
electric. It's the big diesel truck out there.
Yeah, I'm playing my part. Nah, hydrogen. That's where I think it's at.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think it's hydrogen.
Yeah, I've got high hopes.
Yep.
The Toyota car that they released sounds weird, but I've still got high hopes. Yep. I think there's potential for that. There's just obviously a lot of work.
A lot of work.
It's way beyond any of our brains' capabilities of working out.
Carts with horses, mate, and now look at what we're doing. So look.
No, that's it. God, I've been thinking all day and I had all these questions, and now I'm going.
You need to write them down.
Oh, you can't when you're flat out working.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough.
Sitting there editing a car,
you got me.
doing tuning, sitting on the dyno, and it's like, while you're waiting for the file to upload, I'm like, right, what can I ask him tonight? And I'm talking with Saul. How many other Australian tracks have you been to?
I've actually driven none.
Oh, really? So you've only done
just
Basking and Simmons?
Yep. Yeah, so everything that I drive this year will be fully first time. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Really
cool.
Want to drive Calder. Really want to drive Rayleigh.
Yeah, that's one that is on
Rayleigh's
my
up
bucket list for sure.
Yeah.
That looks cool.
Yeah.
That looks really fun.
Yeah, I don't know if I can pull it. Have you seen Pheasantwood?
Yep.
Oh, that looks like the dream track.
Yeah.
If I could drive
But it's not
there,
open very often, is it?
No, and they did stop it for drifting, but I think they've started letting it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'd love to drive there. Man, I'll drive anywhere though. I'm bummed I missed Archie, but whatever. Done now.
I went passenger laps around there few times.
Yeah.
Did a lot of filming there.
Yeah, cool.
While I was travelling.
Yeah, nice.
That was cool.
Yep. So, but no, I haven't. I've driven, in other countries more tracks than I have in Australia. But I mean, logistically, to take a car to, certainly a few years ago, maybe not so much now, but take this car to, Queensland Raceway would have been more expensive than it was to go to Japan and drive.
Yeah.
So it just never...
It would be close to being on par now with flights and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. It's for people that are viewing this from outside of Australia, Australia's huge.
Yeah, you just can't understand
People don't
it.
comprehend how far it is to drive.
Yeah,
and
days and days.
I envy the Americans. It's like they just get up and they drive for 2 hours and they're at a track.
I know.
And it's like, that's...
The dream.
Yeah, it's like 7-hour round trip for us to Baskerville.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's still on the tiny little island of Tasmania. And it's 7 hours round trip.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, travelling, I was amazed when I was travelling in Australia of how far you can drive and not see another human being.
Yeah, wow.
Like, when you're in the outback,
Yeah.
it is terrifying how lonely it is out
Yeah,
there.
okay. We're going to find out.
Yeah. Are you going to go inland at all? I guess you're going to stick to the East Coast.
Yeah, our first tour will be... So we've done a little Tassie tour, but our sort of big mainland trip will be mostly the East Coast. We will potentially on the way back down, maybe come in a little bit, but 2026 we'll potentially go broader,
Cool.
and maybe even go west. So we'll see. It's sort of all... What Dare to Drift is what they call a proof of concept. So we'll do it guaranteed for 2 years, and then we'll reassess and see if it worked, if it's feasible.
So in that, if there's people watching and they want to get their kids involved with something like what you're doing, have you got an itinerary? How can they find out about it?
Yeah, there will be. So we've got a website, daretodrift.com.au, and we actually this week will be locking in our tour, essentially.
Your itinerary of where you're going.
Yep.
So you're going to be turning up to schools?
Yep, so we'll do...
And are you going to be going to tracks and doing things at all? Or having people meet up? Or?
Yep, so we'll do primarily schools, and then we'll also do youth ministries as well along the way, and then I'll do as much driving as I can, that as long as I'm in the state and I can get to the events. But that will be just like, that won't be an official Dare to Drift, that's just me going to the track and trying to have some fun.
Yep. So it's not going to be obviously drifting when you're at the churches and at the schools.
No.
Set a
Not
car
yet.
park up.
Not yet. What my plan is to, once we get a few runs under our belt, have a serious talk to our insurance and say, what would we need to do to tick all the boxes and dot all the I's? Because you and I both know that a first gear donut is actually incredibly safe.
Oh yeah.
There's not much that can go wrong with that.
No.
But to the safety manager at a high school, it's like freaking out.
Wild. Yeah.
But if we
from the outside, I get why they are like that.
Yeah.
Put them in the passenger seat, it'll completely change the perspective
so
of the whole thing.
I actually think there is potential scope to be able to do.
Yep, that'd be cool.
It'd just be lots of paperwork, but baby steps.
Yeah, for sure.
At the moment, sit in it, have a look at it, ask questions, start it up, rev it up.
Yeah.
That's the drift experience.
Yeah, cool. You deal with a lot of youth, a lot of young guys, a lot of different people from different walks of life, I guess. For young people that are thinking, I'd like to get into drifting, and for it to become a successful thing, obviously we both know it needs money. What would be your sort of best advice that you could give, say, if I was like a 16-year-old, 15-year-old kid that's like, I want to drift when I get my licence?
Yeah. I get asked all the time.
I thought you would.
That's like probably it's not like I get, every day I'm not getting messages from people, but occasionally when I do get people send me messages who I don't know who they are, it's nearly always, I watch your channel, I want to drive, where do I start?
Yep.
So my first thing that I always say to young people, but this is just in general, and some people do it very differently to me, but my thing is, do not go into debt to start drifting. I'm like a big advocate for that. I'm like, do not
awesome advice.
Go get a loan to buy a drift car.
Yep.
That is just, it'll be fun to start with. It will not be fun in 10 years' time when you're still paying off whatever. And then, they're like, oh, but I can get this interest rate, da-da-da-da. Sweet. Save up and buy something.
Yeah.
So I am not at all a Falcon or a Commodore guy, but I fully get it.
Yeah.
Like, I 100% get it. And if I was getting into drifting now, that is 100% what I would be doing. I'd be getting a BMW or a Falcon or something that's cheaper. I wouldn't be starting at a Sylvia or a JZX or whatever. I still think 350Zs are a sick starting point. You can be in a 350 for 10 grand. You get a job and save for a year, you can do that. That's so achievable.
I think the big problem with a lot of people now, and it's
They
sort
want
of
it
like
now.
it's the short attention span TikTok kind of thing, that people want that.
Delayed gratification. My father-in-law says this to me. He used to say this to me all the time. Like, this is me peak wanting to just spend all my money on drifting, get loans, right? He used to always say to me, Taylor, he's a very successful businessman. He'd always say, Taylor, you can play now and pay later, or you can pay now and play later. And I'm like, no, that's I hate that advice, but yeah, okay. And so, I always say don't go into debt. But I also, it's still expensive outlay, but as far as skill-wise goes, I'm a big sim advocate.
Yep.
So I've got like a mid-tier setup, not crazy, but not like Logitech, and that transformed my driving. That 100% elevated my driving. I can do hundreds of laps every night, and it doesn't cost me a cent once you've
got it set up.
Made the original the purchase up front. So yeah, I would say don't go into debt. Get something basic. Don't overbuild it. Rock up to events, skid pan, whatever.
One thing that I would probably take away from seeing the people that I see that are still doing it, like yourself, and there's only a handful left, really.
Yeah, it's true.
Are people that have actually been smart with their money initially. You've bought a house, you've set yourself up with your family, you're not in a situation where you're renting and all that sort of stuff. That is something I think is a key thing. If you look at it and go, I want to do that and I want to do that for a long time.
Yeah, it's got to be sustainable.
Like, life is, we're here for, it is in reality a short time. There is a lot of time that you've got to be able to actually catch up and do it in the future.
Yeah.
But I would, my sort of input into your answer there would be really focus on getting your life sorted first before you start something that's going to cost you a lot of money, that's going to make it really hard for you to get your life sorted.
Yeah.
Because I owned a house when I was doing it.
Yeah.
And it made it a lot easier because you don't have rent and all that sort of stuff. You still got to maintain your house.
Of course.
Yeah.
And pay your mortgage.
Like, now I've got a business. I don't have a house, but I've got a business that's fairly successful. It's making money.
Yeah.
I'm giving drifting a break this year.
Yeah.
To basically get ahead. I want to get a property and stuff like that. But I would say if you think you're a young guy and you go, I'm going to get into drifting, it's going to cost you a lot if you want to be competitive at it and do it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always costs more than you think. And it is a real balancing act. Like, I think you can fall off the horse either side. You can go get big loans, build a 600 kilowatt car and not know how to drive. And you can work so much and save and never live. Like, there's definitely a middle space, but I still think going into debt for drifting is not my advised pathway. If this car caught fire and burnt to the ground, my life will continue as per usual. Yeah. And please God, never let that happen. But I wouldn't be paying off a loan for an asset that I no longer have.
Yeah, and we both know how easy it is to write a car off.
Mate. Yeah.
and that money's gone. Like,
And it might not even be your fault.
No, that's right.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yep.
Sorry.
100%. You can be as skilled as possible. And
100%.
Yeah. And you just, have no choice about what goes on around you. Other people just, take you out.
That's right.
I reckon, I don't think I've got any other questions with you. Is there anything else you'd like to cover off or talk about? Any other exciting stories or anything going on in...
Exciting stories.
Actually, with Japan, one question I had that, how do you go with the language barrier? Because I think that's a thing that I think a lot of people, that's one fear I have myself.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to go there and
not be able to communicate.
Well, not be able to communicate. I've been to overseas, to Asia and stuff like that, but Japan's a very, they're a particular culture that are a particular way. And I feel like I'm quite loud and I'd be seen as...
Yeah, well, they definitely are very respectful and very polite.
Yep.
So Brendo and Joash do, what's that app called? Duolingo. And they're trying so hard to learn. Brendo's really good. Brendo can actually communicate.
Right.
Which is pretty impressive. And Skinner Joash isn't too far behind, but I'm I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
But I just learned the basics, mate. Honestly, I know the biggest ones, arigatou gozaimasu, which is thank you, basically. And sumimasen, which is excuse me, which is multi-purpose. It's excuse me, get out of the way, or excuse me, I need some help. And I've never ever been in any situation where I haven't been able to just make it work.
Right.
Ever. They're so polite. They so want to help. As long as you're just polite back.
Yep.
As
long as you're nice and kind.
They're the best people. Super kind, super friendly, very hospitable. Yeah. The language barrier isn't a big deal. Not at all.
And I've also got to ask, what is it about going to 7-Eleven to get your food when you
mate.
It looks, to me, looking from the outside of the food that I like.
Oh, I know.
Just packaged
junk
food.
I can't explain it.
What is it?
It's just the best, bro. I'm telling you.
It is literally that delicious.
It's so good.
Really?
It is so good.
Is it fresh?
Yeah. Fresh. Cooked every day. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, dude,
It just looks like high turnover factory junk.
Their sandwiches, I kid you, they're not normal. They're just on another level. I would happily just eat 7-Eleven every day.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so good.
Is it unhealthy or do you think it's healthy stuff?
It's probably not awesome. But although Japan have very, very, strict food laws. I don't know if you're aware of that. There's some cereals.
Is it true you can't eat while you're walking down the street?
I've heard you're not supposed to. It's more it's just not polite.
Right.
But so you can't get
here walk down the street,
whatever
hamburger.
Yeah. You can't get some cereals there, because they're not healthy enough. So they do take their food very. But
take
even
Fruit Loops with you. If that's what you're addicted to.
The food there, bro.
Yeah,
is the best.
I think
outside of 7-Eleven,
I think
amazing,
food
but 7-Eleven
in most of Asia is amazing.
That's true. That's true. I could testify to that.
I made a pig of myself when I went to Malaysia.
Yeah, I bet.
I went to a little island called Langkawi and just rode scooters around. And I remember one of the best meals I had. We were just riding along, and there was just this food restaurant thing on the side of the road, and it was just dirt floor, cats everywhere, and it was just Bain Marie's out on the front of the road.
Yeah.
And you just walk up and it's you grab a plate, you fill it up with whatever you want, you walk to the end and they just look at it and go, oh yeah, that's this much.
So good.
And
bit of white man tax, but who cares?
Hey?
Bit of white man tax, but who cares?
Oh, it was...
It's always so good anyway.
It worked out to be with my plate full, my wife's plate full, and we both had these massive juice, good. Fresh made watermelon juice. Huge, big milkshake sort of cups, $12 Australian.
It's so amazing, isn't it? You want to pay more for it sometimes.
Yeah,
This isn't enough. Let me give you some more money.
It was $18 for a full lobster.
So good. How amazing. Yeah. I think
around $120 at Hershey's.
I think street
Stanley
food's
or
the
more.
best. Street food's the best.
Yeah, I love it.
I had someone said to me once, it's the restaurants in some of the more like third world countries that you have to be careful because they try to cook Western food, but they don't know how to cook Western food, and so that's where you can get sick. But the street food, it's what they cook every day. That's been passed down generation after generation. Street food's the best.
Yeah, and the fresh chilies and spices and everything they use is just awesome.
You're making me hungry now.
Oh.
7-Eleven though, take me back.
Yep.
I'd go back just for that. Maybe
Cool.
I should go teach a few more classes.
Other than going to Japan for drifting, what else would you recommend as the number one thing to do?
In life or drifting?
In Japan.
Oh, in Japan. Okay.
In Japan when you go.
I loved. I've done eight or 9 trips now, and it's only this last trip that I did. I went anywhere but Ibiza, so I'm not very qualified to even to talk to this one. But the last trip, I did a month in Japan, so I did a week coaching, and then a week driving, and then 2 weeks traveling with Danielle and India, our baby. And so we loved Osaka. We really loved Osaka. That was awesome.
Yep.
It's very. People said to me that it was the same as Tokyo. I found it very different to Tokyo. But dude, the place is wild. Whatever you like, you will find a niche of people that are obsessed with that thing. Whether it's drifting, Pokemon, darts, baseball, basketball, shoes, clothes, technology, whatever you like, there are people that love it.
My hurdle now is I bring it up about going there with my wife.
Yeah.
She's like, oh yeah, I'd love to go to Japan. She doesn't want to go to Japan to go drifting. I don't want to go to Japan for anything but drifting.
Yeah.
And it's
you got to balance it.
well, I don't know. It's like I don't want to go just to go sightseeing and be a tourist.
It would be hard to go and not go drifting.
Oh,
it would be very hard.
I don't think I could. I don't think you couldn't go there. As from the background we've got, I couldn't go there and not go to the track.
Yeah. So that's why,
nuts.
Not a plug, but that's why if you're not wanting to do, the big 30,000 plus outlay.
And that's what it would be now if you went to buy a car and do
easy.
it all properly.
You're doing it cheap.
Yeah.
Really.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you don't, like a Z may be cheaper, but even they are getting more. But you're still spending 25 plus on a car.
Yep.
Then you got storage, you got spares, plus you want to you got your accommodation. Like the first trip's the huge one, obviously, because everything's new.
Yep.
So the first trip's, at least 30, I'd say. But, like when you go do a private hire with one of the Zs, or you can do a JZX with the Sideways experience. You can do as many tyres as you want. Obviously, you pay, but it's just a once-off. It's like not cheap, but it's still way more doable than the big outlay.
When you're saying it's not cheap, we're allowed to reveal the pricing.
Yeah, look, I think it's all on their website. I think it's around, if you go a JZX, 350s are cheaper. Don't hold me to it, but I think a full day of driving, fully fueled, everything supplied, like you don't even have to get out of the car to change tyres. Like you reverse out, they change tyres. I think is around 5,000
for a day.
A day.
Wow.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, but that's unlimited tyres, unlimited fuel.
That's like you are just bulk laps. Well,
right.
And that's one thing that we didn't talk about. Like you can do, and this isn't a shot at drifting in Australia. You can do more laps in 1 hour. In 1 hour than you would do in a year here.
I was expecting you to say a day.
No.
Or an event. Like, wow.
If you got a car that's not overheating, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you got tyres ready to go. I did in my lunch breaks, I do 30 laps in 20 minutes. And that's
Right.
like chilling. Like that's not hot lapping. That's
Yeah.
not.
You're just swinging it. Yeah.
So a day of driving, you know, you're there at 7 o'clock and you're leaving at 4. You can just people don't get it that haven't been, but
Yep.
you just get
I
sick of
did
driving.
not understand that.
You get
I didn't
sick
know
of
that.
driving. You're like, someone says you want to come out, and you're like, oh, I'll just sit here for a bit.
Yeah,
just
you just
chill
need a
out,
rest.
just chat and
Wow.
talking shit.
Okay, I didn't know that it was
So you
that
go,
intense.
you go for a week, and you do so much driving. Like it's just not comparable to. So you could just elevate your skill so fast.
Yeah.
Because you
I see that.
seat time.
Yeah, I see that people that do expand their skills. Like Brody from down Hobart, I can't remember his last name now. Had the 86, wide 86.
Oh, Brody Moore.
Brody Moore, that's it.
Yeah, he did. He was very
heaps.
successful.
Yeah, he did heaps of driving there.
Yeah.
But then like it shone here.
Yeah, he came and dominated.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like he was really successful
Yep.
and competing in a very underpowered car compared to
His competitors. Yep.
very high powered cars. Yeah, right. That might be something I have to try and talk the wife into let me do then.
Yeah, it's
Before
definitely.
next year's season starts.
I mean, isn't it? It's every drifter's sort
yeah.
of bucket list thing, isn't it?
So when you
to
you don't
street.
know if you'll go back for a while now?
Not sure.
Yeah.
Not sure. Unless, like, financially, I'm not in a position to buy another car.
I guess this is now your priority.
Yeah,
Yep.
so like pretty much all of my money's gone into building this new car. If I sold the 370 and somehow managed to get save some more money, I could potentially go again. Look, I'm not stressed about it. I think if I'm pretty resourceful, if I put my mind to something, I'm usually pretty good at finding a way to make it happen. But I'd love to go back. I'd love to actually. I don't think I'll do it, but something that I've been throwing around is that now that this car won't be going on the big mainland trip, I could send that to Japan. But
that'd be stressful. So what happened to Squid's Beamer?
That's
Getting stuck.
The problem with this car is that it's you can't lock it. Like it doesn't even have back door handles. Like and that like people do get stuff stolen out of their cars in Japan in the storage there. So yeah, so it's expensive to send it there, but man, it'd be cool to send
have
a
your
car
own car
over.
there. Yeah.
So who knows? We'll see what the future holds. Probably not this year though.
Are you driving Tassie this year?
Yeah, it's still somewhat undecided. I will definitely.
Obviously, if that's going to be the travel car, this
will
is
be
gonna
here.
still.
Yeah, so I will be away for 2 of the round 2 and 3. Will be in our tour, but not 100% yet. But I'm thinking about trying to fly back just for the weekend.
Yeah.
And do both rounds so I can still do the full.
Well, that's what
full
James
series.
did when he was travelling.
Yeah.
James Taylor.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe.
Yep.
I'd love to. I'd really love to. And the prize for coming second was all like full calendar paid for.
Oh, cool.
So it'd be nice to utilise that as well. So we'll see. I'll get the dog box in this thing and get it pointing the right directions. It got pretty bent up at the last round.
Yep.
Do the first round, and that'll probably be a bit of a catalyst. See how that goes. If I do okay, might make the second one work. If I do okay, I might make the third one work.
Well, I look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate your time. I think we'll call
fun.
it a day for now. Thank you very much. I think I'd like to actually, revisit in 12 months or so and see how you're going.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Because, this was good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. And,
No worries.
Yeah, look up Small Town Drifter on YouTube if you want to see more of what he's up to. And, Dare to Drift if you're into that, get into it and, get your kids involved.
Sweet. Sounds good. Thank you.
Mate. Thank you.
Legend. Done and dusted.
Done.